Hey everybody, Economic Ninja here. I hope you're doing great. I first want to say this is coming out on Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there, and to those that do not have fathers because they've lost them either through death or horrible circumstances. I want to, which are both horrible circumstances, I want to say, today's the day to be a good father or a mentor to somebody, all right? Now, that's not what this video is about. This video is about some interesting things that I learned from a subscriber that actually is involved in 3 separate industries that we have spoke about before, and I want to bring you boots on the ground information, okay? This is very, very vital and very important because as you are looking for, let's say, a new car, you're looking to prepare food for a food shortage that's literally underway right now and it's going to get worse, or whether it be shipping supplies and shipping industry and supply chain breakdown, I got a lot of information for you, okay? So stick around to the end because we're going to be going through these different scenarios. And it's not just from a subscriber and a business owner, but I also have other friends in these industries and I've been talking to them as well. So we're going to lay it all out right here, right now. So if you want to go ahead and hit pause or grab your coffee, have your coffee with me, that'd be awesome. And here we go. First off, I want to say something. When you are prepared, not scared, it's an amazing thing. When you know of anything that's going to trip you up or slow you down from your goals and achieving greatness in life, and greatness is so many different things, but to me, it is supplying for my family and my lineage. I want to make generational wealth that people can go, hey, you know, we got a great start in life because my great-grandfather or my grandfather or my dad did this. He fought for me. You know, I'm in a position right now where I have not been handed anything from my parents except for, and which is the most important thing, love and instruction, right? Guidance, and using my parents as examples to watch what to do and what not to do. It's been a great gift. Matter of fact, it's shaped me to be the person, the investor that I am today. A lot of people have been blessed with parents that are able to do a lot of things financially for their children. Some parents are only able to supply a roof over their head and things like that, and be able to help them get through school and give them those tools. I have been very blessed with that, and it has made me hungry, right? And so on this Father's Day, I'm at work right now, still loving being blessed with a job, but yeah, you know, work never ends between that and my other side hustles and businesses. But we are very blessed and we all have choices. So I want you to understand this on this Father's Day, make good choices, right? So whenever we know things are coming, bad things, we prepare, right? So that we could take advantage of these situations. Well, I was talking the other day, I was with my gold and silver broker friend, and there was a phone call with a subscriber that was making a nice purchase of precious metal, preparing for this transition into this new global currency, along with the situation that's unfolding with the dollar hitting that threshold, that, you know, currency's collapsing and all that kind of stuff. And I had heard that this gentleman owned a trucking business and said, you know what, I'm on the road. I want to throw on my headset. I want to hear what this man has to say about what's going on today in his company. So first off, I don't want to give away any personal information, but this company is large. It's 200 trucks running, okay? So this is a large trucking company between their own and brokering with other owner-operators. A couple of things that were said, and what's really interesting, first off, this gentleman not only owns a trucking business, but is also a farmer, grows cranberries, and owns an automotive repair business as well. So really interesting, eclectic mix of, however, complementary businesses, all right? And I've been talking about this before. When you start a business, it's very good to have multiple businesses, not only for multiple different types of write-offs, but also being well diverse, right? In not only your write-offs, your lifestyle, but also your ability for one business to complement another, okay? So very interesting. So I'm talking to him, and hopefully I get all of this information right. But we're going to start with the trucking business. First off, he says the margins are collapsing. He is having a very hard time between the increase in insurance and fuel and the difference between that, the cost that he is seeing, with how much he's able to get for shipping, for moving freight, right? The margins are collapsing. So it's very, very hard to keep up with what's going on. He says his company is still busy. However, it is not like it used to be. Okay, so it is slowing down, but as of right now, he has enough work to keep his drivers employed. So that's great. And again, this is a 200 truck operation. Okay, so with that being said, you don't get to 200 trucks by not having lots of contacts in the industry. Okay, so I understand. I've talked to people that are owner operators of 1 to 3 trucks, and they have said things are getting very rough for the next reason that we're going to talk about. And that is something he said is one of the issues is the parts. You can have a truck completely flatlined, dead in the water sitting, and he does have a few of those right now, where you cannot get the parts. Like we've talked about the depth sensor. You know, the more advanced these vehicles get, what's scary is that the entire vehicle now hinges on a stupid sensor. It's absolutely to shut the truck down, throw it into limp mode, right? And we see this all over. You've got temperature sensors, you know, because they say, you know, all these whiz bang little gadgets that are on the motors are great because it's going to stop the motor from, you know, seizing up or catching fire, right? Because at any point, one of these sensors go off, then the truck goes and shuts down before there's a problem. That's great. Here's the problem. First off, these sensors are completely, they're finicky, right? They get clogged up, they get messed up. There's so many times, like on some of these Freightliners that I've worked on before in the fire service, you'll have ABS issues where the ABS light's on, and it literally comes down to getting underneath the brake, pulling off the sensor and wiping it off and putting it back in, and all of a sudden it's good. But there's a lot of people that aren't that mechanically savvy, and they would, and trust me, that kind of knowledge comes from trial and error. But they would, you have to bring it into the shop. And if the shop's busy, then they're waiting. And or if the shop's not busy, but like what's going on right now, or hey, sorry, all these sensors are going out. We can't even find the sensors. You are out of work. And how long can you last without a paycheck, right? There's so few companies right now that have, you know, let alone just the small, you know, driver operator in the freight industry, you know, even large companies. The way our tax system is set up, if you're a C Corp, give an example, is you're trying to, or I'm sorry, let's say a flow through an LLC or a C Corp taxes an S. It's a flow-through entity. So at the end of the year, you're trying to spend every dime you've got, because every dollar that pushes over that isn't used as a taxable write-off, as it pushes, it stays in the bank account, right? From December 31st to January 1st. The second it crosses over into January 1st, all of your profit that's sitting there on the books that pushes over into the next year gets taxed. It flows through to the owners or the members of that corporation. And so what happens is it's a system where it's like spend, 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 because if you don't spend it, you get taxed on it, right? It's like the conundrum that we find ourselves in owning companies that have inventory. We actually get taxed on inventory. And so what happens is, and it's almost set up for failure, the system's set up for failure because, you know, if you have a ton of inventory and you're getting taxed on it, and the reason the government set that up, to give you a little backstory, a long time ago, was because they didn't want companies to make a monopoly, right? Companies would buy up a bunch of inventory, they'd squeeze the market, and then what would happen is prices would shoot up, right? And then the company would slowly sell their inventory into a heavily inflated or short squeeze, essentially, for lack of better terms, market. You could do this with any item if you're big enough. Well, the government got keen to that, and so essentially it was profiteering. And so what they did is they started coming up with ways of stopping that. And one of the ways was inventory tax. Well, here's the problem. Now you have companies that are trying to liquidate as much as they can because they don't want to get taxed on it. And then when we have a true shortage, it acts in the opposite way, right? And so you really have nothing, and then you can't get it. And that's what we're seeing right now with these depth sensors, with other parts too. There's all kinds of parts that are going out on these trucks, and we're having issues, right? But ironically, it seems to be the cheapest parts. It's the cheapest parts that are stopping these trucks. So that's what he said. So that's an interesting thing. He said, look, he goes, it's slowing down for me, but I'm a big operation. And I have a lot of subscribers that own trucking companies. As a matter of fact, a very nice, lovely couple that came to see us in Denver when we did a Denver meetup. They said they started following the channel because of the talking that I'm doing with the trucking industry, news headlines, things like that. And it's very hard. You know, they want to be able to project what's going on. And right now, we are going to have higher diesel prices. It's going to skyrocket actually from here. I'm not joking. In the next 3 to 4 months, you're going to see fireworks, and it is going to cause shockwave and fear, a shockwave of fear, essentially, of people that are going to have a very hard time keeping their businesses open. All right. And that also goes for the large businesses. I want you to understand, as a matter of fact, large businesses are actually more susceptible to collapse during these hard times or going bankrupt. And the reason why is because it takes so much red tape to make a change. Whereas your owner operator of a smaller company, of any type of company, can actually pivot if they know what's going on. And that's why it's so good to be prepared and not scared. I just taught a course that hopefully will be coming out for the side hustle course on how to crash proof your already established business or corporation, how to start seeing things different, how to pivot, how to store up, certain things to get rid of and no longer deal with, because it's what I used to do, consulting with companies. So the next business that he talks about is really important is the farming. Now he's a farmer of cranberries, and something really interesting happened to him the other day, and I wanted to make this very aware to you. And that was, he said he was ready for planting season. And normally when he goes to get his fertilizer, he goes and gets it in a timely fashion. It's like, all right, it's time to go get the fertilizer. I get on the phone, I make my phone call, make my order, and the fertilizer shows up whenever, in its normal pattern. The problem was he made his phone call this year and he used dry fertilizer as opposed to liquid fertilizer. And his supplier that he's worked with for many, many, many years simply said, oh, we no longer carry dry fertilizer, we only do liquid. And he's like, what? Like, what do you mean you only do dry? When did you guys decide to do this? They go, oh, we made that decision back in September. And he's like, well, were you going to tell me? And it was just like, oh, here, we got wet fertilizer. I can't use that. So because farmers, this is happening so fast, and I think this is going to get worse, right? We're going to see more supply chain bottlenecks, especially as companies like shipping companies, farms, small farms, or even large farms close their doors because they simply can't plant because they can't get the right items. You're going to see an even worse problem. So what he did is he goes, so you guys made this decision to stop selling dry fertilizer and you weren't going to call us. And my answer to that is it's like a very, very old sales technique. When you stop pushing a certain product, you don't tell your clientele. And the reason why is because you are afraid, even though it's a small percentage, right? Because obviously they made a decision either out of shortages or necessity, but really a company would stop selling a product because it's not low hanging fruit. It's not a large demographic of their business, right? So they're like, okay, we could weather this. We just don't need to sell it. All right. So the problem is they go, well, we don't want to tell the few people that are buying dry fertilizer that we're not selling it. Why? Because they will literally simply go to another manufacturer or producer or seller of this dry fertilizer. And then not only will they buy dry fertilizer, they'll be buying other products from these other industries, right? Our competitors. So they simply don't tell you until it's too late. And then it's about, well, let's try and talk you into wet fertilizer. Have you ever considered this? Like, no, pound sand. I've got to go. So I asked him, what was that like? And he goes, I eventually found someone. And I asked him, like, were you able to plan? He goes, yes, but the problem is I was close. Given another week or 2, 3 weeks, and we could have had some very serious problems, which I believe a lot of farmers are facing right now because they simply cannot get the fertilizer. And I believe that you're going to start seeing issues with tractors, with certain sensors and things like that. We're already starting to see that kind of stuff happening. So I think that's very, very important. And I think that is going to lead to a greater food supply crisis, right? So you've got issues with equipment, you've got issues with fertilizer, but then you also have issues with, can a farm sustain itself by not planting for 1 year when it wasn't expecting that? You got to think about it. How many farmers, how many growers have cash off to the side because they still have to pay for their land? They have to pay for leases on their equipment, because a lot of farmers, and I want you to realize, this is how the Great Depression started. When modern farm equipment came out in the early 20s, they talked many, many people, farmers, into buying these tractors that they could not afford. It was all on credit. My great-grandfather was a large farm owner back in Iowa. And he said to my father, I didn't have the pleasure of knowing him, but I heard nothing but amazing things about that man. But he said he warned all of his friends, don't do it, don't do it. And they were all, amazed by, well, this tractor is this much wider, so it will go faster, it'll cut more, it's more efficient. This was all the sales pitches of all these salesmen, right? Selling you equipment you couldn't afford. Well, the problem was at a certain point, they were unable to keep up with the payments because of the way that the crops were being planted and things like that, that farmers started losing not only their equipment, they were tied, those loans, to their land. So the banks were repossessing the farms. My great-grandfather was a very meek man. My father explains him as a man that didn't dress fancy. He was a multimillionaire, and you could never tell. And his big treat was to go down and get a soda pop and play checkers at the local hardware store with his friends, right? Well, at that time, because he had money, he was going and buying up the farms that were being taken by the bank. And the cool thing is that my great-grandfather was such an honest and good man, good-hearted, he was able to employ many people that had lost their farms, right? So it just sort of picked up. It was never the same for the families that lost their farms. However, they still had work, right? It's very, very important. So I think that's going to exacerbate the problem is young people that are getting heavily in debt with any business, including farms. They're going to be going out of business, and it's going to cause a very serious strain in the short term. In the long term, people like ourselves are going to be able to buy up ththese assets for pennies on the dollar. And then what we're going to do is we're going to employ those people that lost it. We're going to help them. They're going to help us. We're going to grow generational wealth, but it'll pick up. But there's going to be a short period of, and I'm talking about a few years of huge, huge pain. Now, thirdly, I want to talk about the auto care industry. I asked about that. And he says, something about that. That's because he has a repair shop. It's very interesting. He said they're being forced to pick up the second, you feel that sting of like a certain part, a sensor in a vehicle, or something that is crucial, like oil filters, right? To change oil. You see a shortage. The second you have an inkling of the ability to pick up a bunch, you pick up as much as you can. He said, so what's happening is we're taking all of our profits and diving into inventory, right? So we're buying up all this inventory because we're scared that if we don't have an oil filter, we can't do an oil change. I mean, you can have all the oil in the world, but if you don't have an oil filter, you're screwed, right? So now they're diving into all this inventory. Now what's the problem there? Again, it comes down to you are inventory rich, and you have to think about, I'm holding that, I'm paying storage for it, right? It's stored somewhere, so you're paying rent there, but you have that inventory tax. So that's always in the back of your mind. How do you play it? And it's a very, very difficult balancing act between keeping enough inventory to keep yourself busy to be able to employ your employees. It's another thing to think, oh crap, I don't want to get caught at the end of the year with this inventory tax when my margins are being squeezed because of the additional costs, and it's hard to push all of that off on your customers because you're afraid that they may, if you're the first person to raise your prices, they may go to this shop down the street that has not raised their prices yet. Right? You're afraid of losing that customer forever because there is a certain point. It's very difficult to get a customer back after you've offended them, right? With your prices. And in this situation, it's completely out of your control, right? And that's something that needs to be talked about. And so it's a very interesting conundrum. Now, with that scenario, I want to say I am very concerned because I'm talking to a friend that owns a car dealership. And these car dealerships are getting squeezed right now. They have literally seen in the last 3 weeks, everything stop. All sales have stopped. I'm noticing inventory picking up in used car dealerships because they're picking them up from the auctions. I'm noticing a little bit more new cars hitting the lot, but not many. That's still going on, that issue, because of the chip shortage. But quite frankly, people are stopping their purchasing of new cars as well because they're just so expensive. And now the narrative has made its way around all over the mainstream press to where it is, the inflation story. It is huge right now. And that's very important to understand. Now it's in people's, the front of their minds. They may not be preparing for it right now, but now it's in the front of their mind. So what are they doing? They're slowing their spending. They're slowing it. And that's why it's so important to be ahead of this curve. Like I was talking about water filters the other day, and why right now, take this as motivation. because I have a feeling in the next year, you're going to see some kind of crisis come out about water, something in the water. And if you don't have a water filter that like is gravity fed, like, you know what I mean? Like I use, I'll put a link below because I have an affiliate link for it because I love mine. I use it in good times and bad all the time, right? But you're going to see a scare and you won't even believe how fast those water filters, even just the units, the exchangeable filters, right, will be gone because companies aren't tooled up enough to build them. And it's just going to be a panic. And so, you know, we want to take advantage of the panics when like people start dumping all of their extra stuff. I mean, you're going to see garage sales like you wouldn't believe here in the next year. Things that you wouldn't believe people are selling, but it's because, like I said in that pawn store video, people are literally pawning things right now for rent. Pretty soon they're going to stop pawning where they're loaning, essentially taking a loan to try and get that item back. They're going to just start liquidating. You know, so you want to take advantage of that, but you also don't want to be part of the chaos, like with the water filters. If you don't have a water filter, I'd go look at that. I mean, people are like spending money right now buying pallets of jugged water. And I'm like, why would you do that? Just buy a filter. You know, you're not like you're using that water right now, right? It's good to have some water storage, don't get me wrong, but it's like, just think smarter, not harder, right? So I wanted to bring you that information because I think it's very vital from a gentleman that not only owns a business, he owns 3 businesses and they're all complementary, but watching how each one has their own issues, but it really all comes down to one thing: supplies. Not being able to get supplies, which are going to crater the economy as more and more businesses across the country fail, especially because these businesses do not have the money to loan because of interest rates exploding. They just simply do not have the income coming in the front door to be able to put the payment out the back door to keep their business alive. All right, guys, I thank you so much for watching. I hope you got something out of this. If you did, hit the thumbs up button. If you haven't subscribed, if you would consider subscribing, I appreciate it because Ninja Nation is going to be the greatest army of people that are prepared and not scared. And as this collapse goes full bore, we are going to take the mountain and we're going to take it back from the people that stole it from us. All right, guys, that being said, the Economic Ninja is out.